Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Lou. You are listening to the Raptors Reaction Podcast after the Raptors take down the Milwaukee Bucks. I mean, it doesn't say a lot right now. I'm not going to lie. Milwaukee's been horrible. But they win 111 to 105. Not complaining with the result. Ultimately, the Raptors were able to close out the game, finish it out strong. The Raptors once again go to their 2 point guard lineup, which has been kind of the de facto look when they try to close out games, especially in the continued absence of RJ Barrett. And having just a little bit of extra ball handling, a little bit of extra playmaking, I think has worked out well for the Raptors. You looked at some of the last plays down the stretch. Most of them were made by IQ and Jamal. One of them was pretty fortunate. IQ was in the right place at the right time, but crashing the glass for a little putback. That was big. The Raptors went on their classic 3 minutes without scoring, which definitely scared you a little bit in the fourth quarter as the Raptors were looking to close out, but were ultimately very frustrated by a Bucks team that continues to slide without Giannis. I mean, they're a terrible team. They're an average team even with Giannis. They're definitely terrible without him, but they're playing hungry. They're playing desperate. There's a lot of officiating that people were sort of bumping up against tonight. So there was tension, but that tension gets heightened when the Raptors go 3 minutes without scoring, especially in the fourth quarter. So quickly makes a nice play there to get a little putback again, right place, right time. Jamal makes I would say like a bit of an overpassing type of play where the Raptors had a lot of good looks, but everyone just kept passing it. Mamu ultimately does a Euro step, gets into the lane, and kicks it out opposite to Jamal, who shoots a rainbow three. Finally gets one to drop because he wasn't really hitting the three at all before that. Saved his best for last at the end there. IQ feeding Jamal in transition for a layup as well. So a lot of plays made by the 2 point guards. IQ had 8 points in the fourth quarter, which, overcame an otherwise, I would just say really frustrating first 3 quarters. I mean, it was kind of incredible to watch just how many mistakes were being made. But again, Raptors did enough. And you know what? For a game in December before Christmas, I suppose this is okay. You know what I mean? I mean, look, I'm not going to complain about a win. It is what it is. But I do genuinely feel like this game is a loss against most competent teams. And that's to take nothing away from the victory. But there needed to be a lot better plays across the board. I mean, first off, and I'll get to the positives because it's not like I'm trying to be a Debbie Downer after a win. I'm trying to celebrate this, and I think Brandon Ingram played really well. Scottie Barnes played really well. We'll get to that. But for me, one of the things watching this game was just like, man, how come the Raptors botched so many transition opportunities? The Raptors had situations where it was like a 2-on-1 fast break, and guards are trying to take it themselves, going to the rim. Jamal missing layups in transition, Jacoby missing layups in transition. Didn't quite understand some of those decisions, especially the one with Jacoby where he had Scottie Barnes running with him and he tries to go in for a layup himself, misses it, and the other way the Bucks get a 3-point shot to drop. It's like that's a 5-point swing in the fourth quarter. That's unacceptable for any first off, you should score on a 2-on-1 no matter what, but even if you don't score on those, you then can't be giving up the 3 on the other end. That's a 5-point swing in the fourth quarter. Those things are absolute momentum backbreaking type of plays. Or in the first half when there was a 4-on-2 fast break, because the Bucks, again, they drove a lot. They played a lot of pick and roll. They drove their guards. Sometimes when they missed, wouldn't come back, especially Kevin Porter Jr. And so you saw the Raptors on a 4-on-2 fast break, and instead of working the advantage and getting inside, IQ literally takes a pull-up 3 in transition and misses it. And it's not even like he was that open. It was just stuff like that. And again, the other one they missed that, they went the other way for 3 as well. There was also a lot of plays where the Raptors were sloppy with the ball. I mean, 7 or 8 turnovers in the first quarter alone. Some of them didn't even make sense. Dribble handoffs between Jacoby and Jamal Shed. That should be 100 times out of 100. You're able to hand off the ball, but somehow that squirts out of bounds. Or Brandon Ingram saves the ball, but CMB for some reason is standing out of bounds as he catches it. Small things like that really added to the tension of the game. And quite frankly, the Raptors shouldn't have needed crunch time, despite the Bucks playing, I would say, well, I suppose. I mean, they share the ball. I mean, what else are you going to do? You don't have Giannis, so you're going to have to share the ball amongst these mid players. And because obviously, they were clearly targeting the Raptors on the inside, knowing that Jakob Poeltl went from, playing one game in the last 8 games, and today he was now somehow unavailable. I mean, I guess the back is just really that bad of an issue, which really sucks to hear, but it really is a day-to-day thing with him. And even after all this rest, and again, the Raptors have been off for like the entire week minus the Miami game, and then they had 2 more off days after that Miami game. Jakob wasn't able to play today, so Jakob. So the Bucks identified correctly that the Raptors can't really guard in the interior, especially with Mamu in the middle. And there were just so many mistakes by Mamu and Colin Murray-Boyles where, look, I can understand if they're too small to contest at the rim or if they get overpowered, like that's comes with the territory of playing some forwards at center. But what I can't accept is how many times the Raptors were turning around to yell at each other because they screwed up their coverage. I mean, there was a very prominent play where CMB allowed, Jericho Sims to slide back door for a two-handed dunk uncontested completely. And Jamal literally turned around and yelled at him right away. And that was CMB not understanding sort of where to be on that pick and roll coverage. But it happened a lot with Mamu as well. And again, like, on a night where the Raptors really should have come in and asserted control, and their leader was trying to do that. I mean, both their leaders really. I mean, Scottie Barnes and Brandon Ingram were fantastic in this game. Brandon Ingram comes out, knocks down 3 threes right away in the first quarter. Scottie Barnes comes out, plays a dominant game in the first quarter, and it was like setting the tone of, I'm going to take it to the rack, I'm going to score in the mid-range, I'm going to shoot the 3, I'm going to block 2 shots, I'm going to spark the fast break, I'll take it end-to-end myself and finish a play, just to show you guys what it looks like when people actually convert on the fast break. Like, those two leaders were playing fantastic, and Mamu, even though he was getting hit on defense, he was giving it back on the offensive end, and he had a really nice night in a starting role for Jakob, and he has 18 points tonight, 7 rebounds in his return to Milwaukee. You definitely could tell that this meant a lot to him to come back and face the Milwaukee Bucks team where he's still friends with guys like Bobby Portis and Giannis, and this is the team that he came up in. Like, this is the team that drafted him, and he never got the opportunity here in Milwaukee, but obviously he's blossoming in Toronto. It's great, and I'm sure it's very satisfying for him to play well. But it was just those 3 guys playing great, and you thought, well, 3 guys playing great in Milwaukee, you should be winning the game by a lot. But it was the other guys that just kept giving the ball back. In some cases, literally giving the ball back, like what Jacoby was doing, like what Grady was doing, and it was just like a weird game to watch because I'm just like, your best players are playing great on the road, exactly what you want. And yet the rest of the team was kind of working against them. Jamal had a really quiet first half. IQ had a really quiet first half. And it didn't really help that you're like, okay, at the point guard position, I mean, you look at the Bucks, they put all their eggs in the Damian Lillard basket. Like what you're seeing right now with Kevin Porter Jr. and Ryan Rollins, I suppose it's it's a bit of found money for the Bucks because these are guys they picked up off the scrap heap basically. And they come into this game, both of them clearly outperformed Jamal and IQ. And of course, Jamal and IQ played well in the fourth quarter, don't get me wrong, to close out the game, which is great. And that's ultimately what led to the win. So I'm not discounting that. But over the bulk of the game, the Raptors 2 point guards got outplayed by the Bucks 2 point guards. And that's really their second and third string point guards because they should have had Dame if not for an Achilles tear, right? So I was watching this game just like, can we just like lock in for a little stretch there? And I'll credit the Raptors. Like, they were able to lock in after a pretty bad start to the third quarter. The Raptors had like maybe a 4-point lead heading into half. So pretty close, but you still have a bit of an advantage. But we've seen the Raptors have a lot of strong third quarters, right? So I thought the Raptors maybe come out in the third, establish, stamp their mark on the game, and pull away. Like what good teams do against bad teams, and that's what the Raptors are. They're a good team, and the Bucks are a bad team. But right away, the Bucks come in, knock down 2 threes to take the lead. Darko has to call a timeout after a minute into halftime. It's just like, that's not a good sign of a team being locked in. And I credit the Raptors because after that timeout, they did start to lock in a little bit more. They started playing more physical on defense. And there was a stretch there in the third quarter towards the end where, okay, the Raptors looked like they were finally starting to pull away, finally starting to make a couple plays. Ochai, CMB, Jacoby was getting a bunch of steals on that stretch too. So it was like, okay, they're starting to pull away and they established a double-digit lead. And I'm like, okay, so now that you've worked hard to claw back the advantage, now that you built a 10-point advantage, how do you close out the quarter strong? And that's where some of the mistakes started happening. Like, again, a 5-point swing. Jamal smokes a layup in transition. And Ryan Rollins goes back the other way and hits a step-back 3. Like, that turned it from a chance for you to go up 12 and again, keep your foot on the gas, and instead it goes to a 7-point game, and all of a sudden at the end of 3 quarters, it's still like a 1 or 2 possession game against Milwaukee, and you've undone some of that momentum. So, look, I think it's realistic because for a young team, they're going to make mistakes, and realistically tonight, it was a lot of the young players making mistakes. Again, Jamal, Jacoby making the wrong reads in transition. I mean, I would say they're young, but it's also like some of these plays are just kind of elementary mistakes at times with what you're doing on the fast break and some of those. Grady, missing a couple opportunities there. CMB also getting yelled at, even though I thought he had a decent game, but could have done a lot better, especially with more time in his career. Like, there are a lot of young mistakes that sort of take place on this team. So ultimately, like, they survived it, and despite having very little from their bench, Jameson Battle got a little 5-minute cameo, but he wasn't able to knock down his threes. So his stretch was limited, and I understand the bench is down two of their key players with RJ and Jakob out, so they've had to put Mamu and in this case Ochai, who actually had a really good first half. Second half disappeared, but like, I at the same time, like, man, now that the Raptors are playing well, like, there's actually pressure on these young guys to come in and show some consistency. And I think consistency really starts with making the right play every time, or most of the time. Maybe every time is like way too high of a request. Not even the best players in the Raptors make the right play every time. Sometimes Brandon will shoot over a double. Sometimes Scottie will force a pass that's not there. So, like, it's not to say that the veterans never make mistakes, but what makes them really good, in addition to their talent, is that, like, they're making the right decision like 90% of the time, 95% of the time, and then you couple that with their ability. Then they're able to make plays that you see from all-star level players, which what Scottie and Brandon are playing like today. But for the young guys, forget trying to force it, or like, oh, I'm pressing because, like, I don't have a chance to, like, score very much and I play limited minutes, so I got the steal, so now I got to go finish my own layup. No, man, make the right play. And if you make the right play most of the time, that's what's going to get you more opportunities, and that's what is going to make you more consistent, so you're not so up and down, and then that swings emotionally the performances that go out there. And that's where I credit Jamal, because out of all the guys, Jamal's not the one with the most talent out of the guys with the second unit. I'd argue Jacoby, Grady, these guys come in with, like, skill sets to shoot. They're bigger, they're taller, whatever, but Jamal, the one thing he does is he makes the right decision. And yes, he made some mistakes today, but even down the stretch, I mean, a coach trusts you if they let you close the game, and they were, especially at the point guard position, because they trust you'll make the right decision. And ultimately, that's what we ultimately saw from Jamal, was he started to make more of the right decisions, and that's how he was able to close out the game with 8 points and 10 assists. Like, that was good, even though he had a frustrating first half as well, but he was able to stabilize. And I hope for the young guys that they're able to stabilize a little bit quicker, because look, when you're thinking about a team that all of a sudden goes from developing the last couple of years to this year being a team that actually has some expectations to win, then you're in these positions where you're in the lead, you're playing with great players who, ultimately should be the ones deciding most plays, but sometimes obviously you're a team, so you're out there, you got to make a play, or you got to convert an open shot, or you got to make the right choice on the fast break, or most importantly, you got to make the right reads and the rotations on defense, and they screw that up, then it's actually going to be consequence. And so I think that is in itself is a good sign, like a sign of improvement from the Raptors year over year. Like, it's great now that they're playing much more meaningful basketball. Like, you're actually expecting them to win. Last year in December, the Raptors were like 3-18 or something. So it's great that instead of that, we actually get like a team that is now improved with this win to 17-11. Like, that's great. They've now just won 2 games on the road consecutively. The Raptors didn't win 2 road games last year until like January. So, like, these are all positive moments, but I think that the standards should be raised on some of these guys. And tonight, a lot of them played below it. But the 2 guys who definitely played above standard, especially even for their high marks, are Brandon Ingram and Scottie Barnes. And this is where I'm going to get some praise to the 2 guys. I mean, the Raptors have officially started the All-Star campaign for some of these guys, and rightfully so. It seems like the strategy this year, they're going to push these 2. Maybe if RJ had stayed healthy, they try to push 3. But, I mean, once again, the Raptors may not push RJ for All-Star. Not a shocker here. Last year, he led the team in scoring. They didn't push him. But in any case, well-deserved, because they're clearly the 2 best players in the Raptors. Both in their own ways, like, brilliant, kind of like, both guys playing on the wing, but with 2 entirely different styles. I thought, again, Scottie Barnes, the start of this game was just sensational. Like, man, you put that highlight tape from the first quarter and you send it straight to whatever voter. And maybe it's not the most convincing because it's the first quarter against the Bucks in December, but, I mean, you just got to watch the plays he was making, man. Like, he comes out the game and he immediately stamps whatever it needs to be done for the Raptors, right? So he comes over with the weak side block on AJ Green, gets the rebound, and then pushes the ball the entire way on the break and finishes in traffic. Just a huge play. Like, basically just big dogging everybody on the court with that one sequence. He had a play where I loved where he posted up, couldn't get to the right spot, threw it back out, and then immediately worked to get back to the spot he wanted to get to originally without the ball, then called for the ball right back. That little repost, that's a sign of a confident scorer. And then once Scottie got to a spot, turnaround jumper on the baseline, fall away, 10, 12 footer. Obviously, he's bigger than the man he's posting up. The help can't come over on a shot like that. Really, really confident sign of his scoring prowess this year. He had a block from behind on not just the first play, because you might think, okay, a guy's driving, there's probably the dump off option to the big behind you, but the guy driving missed a shot, and ultimately in this case, Turner was one getting the offensive rebound, and he thought he had a putback dunk. Scottie Barnes didn't just help on the initial drive, but he actually comes over and swats away and anticipates the offensive rebound on the putback. That's just a really smart sign of his like defensive prowess. And then going the other way, the Raptors had been struggling. At this point, Grady missed a wide open three, which, against the zone, the Raptors, really need guys to be able to knock down the three. And Grady's been struggling. So it's like, okay, please knock down this three against the zone, Grady. We just moved the ball well. We've gotten it to you. And for a good shooter wide open, he shot it really long to the point it almost hit the backboard. So that was already a little bit distressing in the sense that it's like, yo, we need our 3-point shooters to break the zone. And then the next play down, the Bucks remain in that zone, and Scottie Barnes is like, I'll show you how it's done. Don't worry about that. Okay, you missed your shot. I'm not even supposed to be the shooter here. Don't worry. Here's from me from 28 foot, knock down the three. And it was just like that dominance from Scottie right away. And of course, every time Scottie stepped on the floor, positive momentum started to happen for the Raptors. Rebounding, defense, playmaking, he just did a lot of really good things. Second half, he kind of faded a little bit, but ultimately he still finished with a really efficient game. And just the type of two-way performance that has made him the best player on the Raptors all season. He's the number one reason why the Raptors are in this position where they're 17-11. And, for an all-star campaign, I mean, if I had to just choose one, I'd pick Scottie. But honestly, Scottie wasn't the only guy who played like an all-star tonight for the Raptors. There was also Brandon Ingram, who goes for 29 points to lead the team, maybe to lead all scorers in the game. Yeah, to lead all scorers in the game. Brandon Ingram was also plus 13, highest plus minus on the team. It's interesting because Brandon, I think he's starting to have a bit of a turnover thing where it's just like every time he's putting the ball on the deck, referees aren't really calling those initial bumps. They're usually starting to guard him with smaller guys. Today the Bucks, they don't really have wings, so they kind of needed to put some guards on him. So it's like some Gary Trent, some Gary Harris, just some small Garys basically on Brandon. And sometimes referees they don't call that little bump underneath, and guys are able to dig in, and Brandon maybe he's not holding his position well enough, or his handle is good, but maybe he just wasn't protecting the ball well enough. But he just has those plays where he gets disrupted on the bumps where he's trying to dribble to the spot. So in terms of attacking off the dribble, it's in the first half, it just wasn't great. Second half, I thought Brandon did a much better job of going strong, taking momentum, keeping the ball high, not taking too many dribbles, and going downhill instead of trying to back down with his back to the basket, maybe more facing the basket, and just taking it strong and finishing over the top. There was at least 2 or 3 layups that he made around Myles Turner, who is a premium shot blocker, right? And even sometimes when he didn't make the layup, he was getting fouled and going hard to the basket. So I thought Brandon did a great job of that. But what was really fun was watching Brandon without the ball. And this is something that he's been doing a lot this season, and it's really helped his overall efficiency. He's had ups and downs with his efficiency, but I would say the first month of the season, he was hyper efficient. And the reason for that is because he's just coming off the screen, whether usually he's in the corner, somebody's on the wing, the guy on the wing, gets a little screen for Brandon. Brandon curl, he lifts to the top. He catches it around that screen, and now he's either in his spot, which is in the mid-range, or he has momentum to turn and keep rolling downhill and then actually finish the play at the basket. Those are the plays that I think he was really good at. And I think the differentiating factor with Brandon in terms of his efficiency is always the 3-point shot, right? Because yes, he's great at the mid-range. Yes, he's very good at going to the basket. The concern there is he going to get fouled? Is he going to get the calls? First half, he wasn't getting the calls. Raptors didn't even get a single free throw in the first half, which is kind of incredible. Raptors did shoot 21 free throws in the second half, so that was good. It didn't help that the Raptors went 14 or 21. You left a lot of points on the table, but ultimately, whatever. The calls came in the second half. But Brandon was relentless, man. Even in the first half where you don't get a single foul call, you still continue to go to the basket, and that's how he got rewarded and finished with 8 tonight. But again, when the efficient games come for Brandon, it's when he's got the 3-point shot to drop. And to see him not come out the game, first 3 shots he made were threes. He's not hunting them in the sense that he's not trying to force them up, but stuff in transition, stuff coming off a curl, if he's coming in like a catch and shoot scenario where the Raptors are able to just generate open looks over the course of their offense. The Raptors did do a good job of shifting the defense around, and like when he gets those threes to drop, like all of a sudden it becomes a pretty efficient game. And tonight, 29 points on 9 of 18 shooting, 4 of 6 from 3, 7 of 8 from the foul line. Like a really good night. And I thought defensively, he was in there for some pretty key rebounds. The Raptors obviously undersized without Jakob out there. Brandon was able to come up with a couple key rebounds and even got a couple of steals to his resume. And of course, that paired with Scottie with 24, 11 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal, 2 blocks, 10 of 14 shooting. Like those two guys were like by far the 2 best players in the game. If you want to put KPJ third, you can. Although KPJ is very problematic and again, not somebody in the league that I don't really want to see, especially as somebody cheering for the league. But in any case, clearly the league doesn't care about that. But in anyways, like those two guys outside the turnovers and the Bucks obviously do what every team does, which is send extra bodies at them. Brandon started to see double teams. Scottie started to see a lot of double teams. They also threw their fair share of like passes, or in Brandon's case, it was kind of loose with the ball. So, like 9 turnovers is a lot for those two guys. But ultimately, like those two guys played great. And that's the reason why the Raptors were able to stay ahead. Because again, like the rest of the team really didn't play well. Outside of Mamu, who finished well, but didn't defend that great, but, still played well for his standard. But that was the separating factor, was like their high baseline of what they bring to the team. And then, of course, like, yeah, a strong finish from IQ. Ochai was making a couple corner threes, which is nice. It'd be great if he got back to last year's Ochai. Tonight, he kind of played like last year's Ochai. A slip to the basket here, catching the defense by surprise because you don't usually expect a guy 6'4" to, roll to the basket. But he's athletic and he slips on the roll a lot. And then the corner threes to drop, like, it's not asking for a lot. It's not really asking him to play above himself. It's what most players should be able to do, where you're able to knock down some open corner threes and just play some solid, energetic defense, which I thought he did a good job of tonight. So, I'm happy with Ochai's 20 minutes. I'm happy with what Sandro did. And ultimately, even though it was such a frustrating game for IQ, he comes on strong at the end there and has 8 of his 9 points in the fourth quarter. And of course, yeah, very frustrating that he only had 9 points, but I don't know. I mean, I suppose that it was ultimately enough. It was funny because him and Jamal, IQ with 9 points, 10 assists, Jamal with 8 points, 10 assists. It's a very weird combination, but sometimes when the Raptors have their 2 wings going like that, and even Mamu knocking down shots, like I don't hate it, I suppose, when the point guards are more creators than when they are finishers. But, and again, in the modern NBA, most guards are guys who are creating advantages and scoring, and defenses have to double, and that's what sort of creates the chances for them to play make. But the Raptors' offense is set up in such a way where the guards at the top can just kind of like set up and sort of be at the dials and play more traditional point, and the Raptors can still get assists that way. But ultimately, again, it wasn't, I'm not going to lie to you, it wasn't a strong performance, but the Raptors got enough done. So we're going to take our first quick break. We're going to hear from a sponsor, and then afterwards we'll take your questions.
This segment is presented by Table Fare and Social. Get your pregame bites and after-work drinks at Table. It's at a great location right across the street from Scotiabank Arena and just steps away from Union Station and the Metrolinx bus terminal. Will, what are we having at Table Fare and Social?
Well, they got one of our favorites in the city, Alouette.
Ooh.
And of course, Alouette. Incredible food.
The wedge salad?
The wedge salad, exactly. Imagine you're about to watch a Raptors game, you're about to watch a Leafs game, you're about to catch a concert at Scotiabank, and beforehand, we get together, get a couple of drinks at Alouette, get that salad. We're ready for anything, man.
Yeah, no, there's plenty of options at Table Fare and Social. This is your go-to spot. Next time you're off to a game, check out Table Fare and Social, a downtown food hall right across from the arena for some great pregame bites and drinks.
Okay, we are going to take your questions here. Appreciate intern Krem again for backing up the play here and starring some of your questions. If your question doesn't get answered, blame Karem, okay? That's right. I'm putting, once again, our intern on the line here. A couple ones. First up, Karem, what do you got in this, man? Refs should be checked for illegal gambling rigging. Yo, referees are not rigging the Raptors Bucks game in December, man. I was not a strong officiating performance for sure. Like it's a bad one when both teams are pretty upset at the refs. Kind of evenly, I thought. Like both teams were like pretty upset with the refs, but I don't know. I don't think it was rigged. Why would you rig things for the Bucks, man? The Bucks are maybe one of the biggest victims of the season. So, nah. You know what, Kareem, you're already on the line, buddy. Let's see what else you starred from the group here. Um, we need to improve our layups, man. So many missed shots at the rim. Yeah, you know what? Honestly, some of that it just comes from like not making the right reads at times. Like again, like some of those fast breaks where the Raptors were, you know, picking the wrong option. Like that more than anything else is just making the wrong read, which will definitely contribute to making harder plays overall. Having said that, though, yeah, absolutely. Like, but I mean, the one thing with the Raptors shooting guards is like they're not that consistent shooting the three, and they're not that athletic going to the basket, and they don't really have great handles. So, like I know that's pretty damning, but it is just pretty damning. Sometimes you watch it and you're like, they make the game look really hard. And guards in general, I don't know. Like I guess I'm used to like forwards making the game look hard, or even centers making the game look hard. Like that's kind of part of it. Like the skill level definitely, kind of generally declines between like point guard to like center by the time you get to center. If you're just looking at like raw basketball skills, right? But like I don't know. The Raptors shooting guards are like pretty exceptional as a group, man. Like none of them create advantages, and none of them are guaranteed to finish either layups or threes, which is kind of strange, really. Yeah, and I think this is one of the parts too, actually. As Darko says, like a missed layup is like a turnover. Yeah, I do think so, and that's honestly part of the reason why, like, despite those guys being really good scorers, their overall impact metrics weren't always as strong as sort of like what their scoring numbers would say. But like, DeMar DeRozan used to be very guilty of this, where he would drive and obviously he would finish a lot of his drives or he'd get fouled, but sometimes he would drive, miss, then like be slow to get back, or his momentum takes him out of bounds and now he's slow to come back, or he's complaining when he's slow to come back. And, that allows the other team to sort of like, again, have a semi-fast break, which usually they convert. In the modern version of this, RJ does a lot of the same thing where he misses a layup and it takes him a while to come back, and it hurts sort of the overall transition opportunities. Or your defense is compromised on the way back. Like that's kind of part of like the difficulty with missing those. So like, yeah, I mean, you would think that it's like a guarantee to like make layups, but for a lot of them, it's not. You know what I mean? And it really does hurt when they do miss them. But it definitely they were able to overcome it today, which I do think was part of it. I hope this is real from Ocha. It'd be nice if he's decent again. Yeah, you know what? I was about to say the same thing, really, because I think for the team, like, the Raptors are like really badly needing somebody to just like take that position, and run with it. I don't ultimately think Ocha is long for the team. I think I'm pretty consistent on that show in terms of, well, what I said even after last season, in the offseason, leading up to this season, and then obviously during this season. Like I think most likely outcome for Ochai is that he's traded at the trade deadline, and the Raptors either use that to bring in an upgrade or use that to sort of get under the luxury tax. Like those are kind of the two outcomes I see for him. But the thing that's been good for Ochai is like the door is still wide open, because once again, Jacoby and Grady refuse to sort of take the opportunity and just like separate and elevate. Like I think when we talked to Ochai last time in practice, last weekend, like Ochai himself said there's not really that much to differentiate the couple options, and I think that's a little damning. Like I think ideally, not only is it easier for the front office to sort of move forward when one guy clearly separates themselves, but it also makes it a lot harder to move any of these guys when none of them start to play well. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like a lose-lose right now. Again, like to point out a scenario in the past where this had worked well. Like, we had just, talked to Fred this week. We interviewed Fred. Like when Fred joined the team, people forget, but he was the fourth string point guard, right? Like it was Kyle Lowry, obviously, which at that point, like he's literally the co-leader of the team with DeMar. So you're not going to get many minutes at point guard because the two guard positions are already spoken for with two all-stars. But you got Kyle as the all-star at the starter. Then you got Corey Joseph, a very dependable backup who won a championship and everything like that. Then you got DeLon Wright, and then you got Fred VanVleet. So he's like lowest of the lowest. Like he was basically where Chucky Hepburn is right now. But over time, Fred was able to separate himself from like, oh yeah, he's actually better than DeLon Wright. Oh, he's actually better than Corey Joseph. So it's like, okay, so over time, what the Raptors could do is then move Corey Joseph in a sign and trade to get CJ Myles back to sort of balance out the roster. You trade a point guard for a small forward. They needed that. Definitely more shooting for the second unit at that time. And then they were able to move DeLon as a bit of a sweetener in the JV, along with JV for Marc Gasol. And at that point, you were pretty confident with the 2 point guards that you had that were the best ones for you, Kyle and Fred. And ultimately, when you look at the long-term like outlook of their careers, they were definitely absolutely right in that, right? But Fred kind of forced their hand and made it easy for them to decide like which one you're going to roll with, and it was to him. Ultimately, it was the decision. I was hoping that, especially with RJ out, and I think Darko even alluded to this, like with RJ out, guys are getting more opportunity, and hopefully they're able to make themselves better from this. But not just make themselves better, but like take the opportunity to run with it. Like Ochai's getting a chance to start. Jacoby's getting a chance to start. Grady's getting extended minutes. Like, but instead, all those guys are kind of playing a little bit down, except for Ochai, who's playing back up to the level that he was at last year. Like, this is a very similar game to what he had last season. So, like, again, circling back to Ochai, like, if you're looking at it from his perspective, if you really want to stay long-term with the Raptors, well, this is the best opportunity because not only are you getting to start because RJ's out, but you're also in a competition with 2 guys that keep tripping over their own feet. And sometimes literally, these guys are tripping on their own feet. So, yeah, like I root for all the Raptors. I want all of them to play well, not just for themselves, but for the team. And ultimately, if they get moved, then it's still good for their careers to play well, right? So, and Ochai, what he did tonight is nothing that's that different from when he played like last year. Like, this is what Ochai did all of last season. He hasn't been able to hit that level yet this year, but again, like the door is open for him, and in whatever time he has left in Toronto, if that's what happens, if he gets traded, then ultimately, I thought he's done well for himself in the last couple of games here. Insert RJ into this game. How different does it look? I think it looks very different. And by the way, I think RJ is relatively close to returning because it was actually really funny. I opened up Instagram in the middle of the game, and RJ had posted a selection of photos. And it's a lot of pregame fits, and one of them and the caption just says "soon" with many O's, and then I think the 9. But it says 34 minutes ago this was posted. This was at like 8:48 or something, so he must have posted this during the game itself, which I thought was very funny. Granted, it's like literally he's out, so like the man could send like a pickoff. It's not even a big deal at all, but. Yeah, I just thought I was like really encouraged to see this. Like, the update was that he had gotten PRP, and then the update from the start of this week was that RJ is going to be returning to basketball activities this week. So unfortunately, he wasn't able to play today, but the Raptors do have a stretch where it's pretty heavy over the course of the holidays, starting with the back-to-back that they play on Saturday and Sunday. After a day off on Friday. So it's like, hopefully RJ's able to get some time to come back during that stretch. There's not gonna be a lot of practice time. Usually players like to come back to practice first, especially after an extended absence, maybe play a little 3-on-3 in the lead up to it. Go through a full practice. The thing is, Raptors, I mean, if I'm looking at the schedule correctly, like I don't really think they'll be practicing anytime soon, because if you really look at it, I mean, unless he actually practiced in like the lead up to this game, so they were obviously off on Tuesday and Wednesday. Maybe they practiced then and RJ practiced then. I'm not totally sure, but Raptors play a back-to-back on Saturday and Sunday, so that usually means Friday they're not practicing. Saturday, the following Monday is a day off, but it's the day off it's the one day off in 4 games because they play again next Tuesday. So there's a real chance the Raptors don't end up practicing then. Then it's Christmas Eve, which they're definitely not practicing, and Christmas, which they're definitely not practicing. Then they come back to play on Boxing Day. So I'm hoping that RJ returns sometime this weekend, at worst, maybe next week in Miami. But it is good progress that he's making. And ultimately, like, yeah, you put RJ in this game, like I think it's totally different. I mean, first off, the Bucks were sending a lot of extra help at Brandon, a lot of extra help at Scottie. Like, they just need another guy who can go out there and just be confident and knock down open shots, play off the catch, attack a closeout, finish in transition. These are all things that RJ does. You know what I mean? Like, all the mistakes I was describing in terms of like guys not being able to capitalize, missing open threes, or not being able to finish in transition. Like, Brandon and Scottie getting progressively more double teamed. It's like, yeah, man, that's what RJ does great. Like, RJ plays off of these other guys. and he's able to sort of be a counterbalance. You know what I mean? Like, you then have to pick your poison. Right now, you're not picking your poison. You're clearly just going to double team the Raptors' best players because you'll live with, you know in the back of your head, like, I know Jacoby Walter and Grady Dick and Ochai Agbaji and Jamison Battle and Jamal Shed. These guys aren't going to beat me. And today, IQ should have beaten you, but IQ's not going to beat me, really, right? So, like, it makes it really easy. But I think with RJ back, and especially like a healthy, good version of RJ, which we saw at the start of the season, it really forces defenses to actually, take their pick. You know what I mean? Like, how many times have we seen RJ cutting to the basket off a pass from Brandon when Brandon gets double teamed? Man, have you even seen one time so far in the last like month, basically, where Brandon's been double teamed and he feeds somebody cutting to the basket? Like, that's just really rare, So I think, yeah, the time away from it, I think, has gotten people like much more appreciative of what RJ does, and I think that's a good thing ultimately, right? Because again, like I said on Open Gym 2 weeks ago in the episode centered around RJ, but I don't think anyone else is more proud to put on a Raptor jersey than RJ Barrett, and that really matters to me, man. And I think it should matter. This one is a good one from Late to Class, who's in the chat all the time, so I appreciate you, Late to Class. But question: when should we start bringing in more veteran players to our bench versus all our young players? Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? I mean, you notice like if you watch like if you watch the Knicks, for example, in the NBA Cup, and obviously the Knicks are a totally different scenario, right? But like the Knicks are like veteran after veteran. The only young guy they brought in was Tyler Kolek, who absolutely balled out. Shouts to Tyler Kolek. But like ultimately they were like it's all vets, guys who are ready to play, guys who even like a Jordan Clarkson who joins the Bucks or joined the Knicks on like I think a minimum, like you know what I mean, and he was a big difference maker. Like there's really is something to be said about experience. I think for the Raptors side, like this is where they're trying to have both things work for them, and they're kind of trusting that okay, this year they kind of have stakes, but they're kind of like fake stakes, and so they're hoping that there's not as much recourse to fail. So hopefully the young guys are able to respond and catch up to the momentum. Sometimes when I look back at 2019, like part of the magic of that run was not only did you hit the right veteran players in play with like Kyle obviously being here forever and Serge and Mark and obviously Kawhi and Danny, like those guys were your vets, but the young guys at that time were able to meet the vets at the right moment, right? Like you could say they're like, okay, the Raptors were a veteran team, but they also had what? Let me put myself back on the screen here. They also had Fred in his third season ready to perform. Pascal in his third season, ready to perform, again, be the co-star scoring-wise with Kawhi, which is absolutely wild. And then even Norm in some key moments in his fourth year where he had been really up and down in those 4 years. If you remember early season Norm, like Norm was really inconsistent. That was like the one thing with Norm. But like those guys showed enough, and then by the time they got to that point, they were ready. Granted, I think one of the big differences between that group and this group, because you can't really compare the number of years in the league, because Fred was a 4-year senior. Pascal played, I think, 3 years, maybe 2 in college, maybe 3 in New Mexico State. But he wasn't young when he came in the league. I think he was like already like 21. And then Norm was also a 4-year player at UCLA. So, like, yes, there were a fourth season, but like fourth season, that means there were 26. Like, like IQ's 26 right now. Do you know what I mean? So, and so like the Raptors, obviously with Grady and Jacoby in particular, what I'm speaking of, it's like these guys were one and dones and now they're in their second year. So like in terms of actually time spent, they're probably actually 3 or 4 years behind. But in any case, that's sort of the ideal goal, is that you sort of thread the needle where young guys catch up to where they're actually at the level of the older guys. And like that's building a team, right? Ideally, you don't need to be that's part of the reason why I've been like a little bit, more tepid on these sort of like mid-tier options of like, okay, Raptors, like I'm fine if you want to bring in real talent like Anthony Davis, like for sure. If you see a chance to, even the AD trade's awkward. Like I'm still again like iffy on it, but like I can understand it. It's like, okay, clear talent upgrade, star level player, at a low price, maybe you'll go get him. The thing is, I don't like paying full price for like role players right now. Like what, even the Daniel Gafford thing, like people are like, well, maybe we put in Grady, Ochai, stuff in Garrett Temple. I'm sorry, but you got to go in for salary matching purposes and throw in a pick. I'm like, for what, man? Like like even if you get Gafford, that's not solving the center solution for you long term or even short term. You don't have an all-star center. You don't even have you just have an okay center rotation at that point with Gafford and Yaka with a bad back. And meanwhile, you actually use assets to upgrade that. I'd honestly would rather bite the bullet and hope some of these young guys start to blossom. And that's the thing. You got to be a little patient with these guys, but it's tough. If it's just like a straight, what was it, Ochai for Nick Richards, you're just basically flipping positions. Like Ochai, the Raptors aren't using that much, when healthy, and the Suns aren't really using Nick Richards, and Suns, obviously they drafted Kama Malawak with the 10th pick, and they haven't played him basically all year. And, they basically need to pre up more minutes at center. I mean, the last thing the Suns need is another shooting guard. The whole team is shooting guards, basically. But nevertheless, that type of small trade, fine, just to balance out the roster. But if you're actually going to try to upgrade and bring in something, then do it. You know what I mean? It's, I don't know. It's kind of like buying one of those discount vacuums on Black Friday. You're like, oh, vacuum for $50. Yeah, man, surprised. The vacuum for $50 is probably not going to be worth $50 because it's probably terrible. I'd rather just actually go buy a good product. You know what I mean? And it might cost a lot, but I know it'll do the job. So, yeah. Anyway, I do think the time will come for the Raptors to start being competitive and adding more vets to the team. And I think that it's not exclusive in the sense that you don't actually have to wait for the Raptors young guys to get good first to then be competitive, then lose in the playoffs, then add veterans. But I don't know. Right now, we'll see. I mean, we'll see. Again, it depends on the opportunities out there too. This one quickly just doesn't pass the eye test. Even in his good games, I'm surprised with the box score when it's positive. Most times I feel like he's making mistakes. I do feel like IQ was just pretty bad tonight. This is, again, I'm happy for him that he finished with 8 points in the fourth quarter because that really was able to not only help the Raptors overcome the game, but also, allow quickly to, escape. Otherwise, a kind of a nightmarish game for him. But yeah, the eye testing is tough. I think really for us, especially because for Raptor fans, in terms of what our eyes are attuned to, we just watched the decade of Kyle Lowry and Fred VanVleet, and maybe people don't even like Fred, but you can't deny that Fred was tough as hell, man, and the heavy hands and the type of gritty plays, and the sort of playing all out and even minimizing mistakes. And Kyle again was this whatever Fred was times 2, basically, right? To go from that to quickly is just very different, man. Quick doesn't have the physicality to throw back at some of these plays. Some of the times when there were long rebounds and it was him fighting against the center. I used to love it when Fred and Kyle used to basically win that David versus Goliath matchup and overcome some of the bigger players. Kyle taking a charge on Embiid. You can't even dream of IQ making those types of plays. So I think especially to not just in general for his play, because I thought today was an objectively poor game, but even sometimes when you're watching it, you're to the Raptor fan eye, you're that just doesn't look right. You know what I mean? So I do think he gets overhated. And that's just, I think that there was a game when the Raptors lost to the Hornets the second time, and whatever, they lost by 25 to the Hornets, but IQ had 31 points in that one. Nobody else was scoring, and people were still complaining about IQ. And I'm just I do think that people are overhating him partially because of the contract as well. That's the other thing too, is people have a really hard time divorcing players from their performance relative to what the cost was to get them, or what their pick was, or what the contract was. And that was always funny to me because it's I understand the frustration for management to be hey, why did you commit so many resources to this guy, or why did you sign this guy, or whatever, why'd you draft this guy? But whatever pick the player was picked at and whatever salary the player gets paid to play, or that doesn't change at all what type of player they are. You know what I mean? Just because you gave them a raise doesn't mean they're going to do more for you. They're the same guy. You know what I mean? So whether they were picked first overall or 50th overall, it's all the same, But I think it kind of unconsciously factors into the frustration with the player. I think people now get really upset with Jakob because it's well, we signed him to an extension and why aren't you playing more? It's well, he started with a bad back. You know what I mean? So, that's yeah. So, what else do we got here? What else? Ochai started hot. Grady hits a 3. Just got enough from everybody. I mean, that's kind of what they did enough to win. That's kind of the big thing tonight. Again, Grady 2 of 4 from 3. Not bad. The guy's playing 18 minutes. He got a couple of deflections. I mean, what can I say? He outplayed Gary Trent Jr., which is not great. I mean, shouts to friend of the program, Gary Trent Jr., but bro, 30 minutes, 3 points, 2 assists, a steal is kind of wild. Gary had a lot of like late shot clock like grenades, but man, I was like, dog, I did not miss what Gary did tonight. But yeah, like Grady did just enough. I mean, it really, I was happy for him to knock down some of those open threes. Again, that's the main thing that he's there to do. And then Ochai, I was happy again. He knocked down some corner threes. Like, I don't know. Sometimes like the opportunity isn't even always there for them to shine because like they don't have the ball much. They don't have much skill with the ball, to be fair. So I'm not saying like, hey, let's reorient the offense around Grady and Ochai, like that's maybe the last thing we should do. But um, the margins are pretty thin, and unfortunately, right now the difference between a good and bad game for some of these guys is whether or not they go 2 of 4 from three or 1 of 4 from three. You know what I mean? And that's just literally just one shot, maybe a millimeter here or there, rimming in and out. So it's like it is tough to live with. But again, I think some of the consistency is like how you defend, how you move the ball, if you're making the right plays. And again, especially when the play is entirely to get to you in an open shot after everyone else has done the hard work. If you miss those, then you're like, God damn, man, what are we really saying here, right? So, and I don't even know. Grady, it's weird. Like, I think people continue to be maybe people are running out of patience a little bit with him, but the last 2 games for Grady, I think, have been fine. Like, he's not going to knock your socks off playing 18 minutes off the ball. It's just, he's, very few players are going to do that, so. Yeah, I like this one too, actually. A little bit of positivity after a win, which that's partially my bad. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm putting too much of my own disappointment on this. But a lot of focus on our offensive struggles, particularly with our execution in critical moments. But our defense has been very good these last 2 games. Very encouraging. Yeah, I do think that, like, the way they defended, even the way they adjusted, like today was not easy. I think, obviously no Giannis, which makes it a lot easier. But, that also takes away sort of like your general game plan. Like your general experience playing the Bucks is like, okay, how do we stop Giannis? Build a Giannis wall. Where do we double from? What's our cues to double? And then once we double, how do we rotate around that to then prevent the open 3 behind us, right? Like that's the number one thing you do when you're facing Giannis. You don't have Giannis here. The Bucks are an entirely different team. Now, granted, they're an entirely worse team, so there is definitely a positive in not having Giannis, but they did move the ball really well. They did really like spread it out. And even though KPJ again is a terrible human being, like he was able to really get into the Raptors' paint over and over again, and that caused a lot of issues. And that really required a lot of the Raptors to lock in defensively. Ochai, Jamal, Jacoby, like those guys all took turns. I think Jamal ultimately probably did the best job on him, and there were some couple key plays in the fourth quarter where Jamal was really able to stick with and deny that. But it was also a lot of effort from the bigs, right? Like if Mamu and CMB continued to be as porous as they were in the pick and roll to start the game, then they weren't going to be able to close out this game on the defensive end. And the Raptors did close out this game on the defensive end. They secured the rebounds a lot better. Again, without Jakob, you always worry about who's going to put a body where, but Scottie, Brandon, even IQ came up with a couple big rebounds. Like those guys were able to sort of secure those misses, but also like the effort and the diligence to sort of get around some of these screens was also huge. Even IQ, like he was very frustrated because he was also missing a bunch of shots, but he missed a runner and he like there's a clear foul. They didn't call it, but then on the play down, he didn't keep his head down and he fought over a screen. And he fell over on the screen after getting clipped by Sims, and they called the offensive foul. So essentially it balanced out, and that's also just a good response, right? Like you're having a frustrating night. How do you respond to that? Well, first off, he responded well with 8 points in the fourth, but he also then, was able to get that play right back. And I think that's a good sign of just the guy being locked in. So, yeah, their defense has been strong. Again, a lot of that is Scottie, but, even today it was a little more difficult because like Scottie couldn't be the primary defender on most of their guys. Like he did a little bit of switching towards the end, but he was mostly a help defender tonight. So where the ball was and who was guarding the ball, like that's always where the defense starts. And at the start of the game, I thought the Raptors were okay. Like they were a little bit porous. Again, like they allowed too many rolls and slips to the basket. And just generally speaking, the on-ball defenders allowed KPJ to get into the paint and touch it, which at that point you're kind of like having a hard time. But yeah, over the course of the game, I thought they did well. And yeah, holding any team to 105 in the modern NBA is a good game. So, such negative undertones after a win. Our fans aren't grateful at all. I don't think that's entirely fair to the fans or even me in this case, because I think that we can be mature and hold space for like what can be improved, right? The standards against a terrible Bucks team that just lost by 45 points. Who did they lose to? Was it the Wizards? Hold on. Uh, hold on. The Bucks last game, they lost. Wow, no, they lost by 45 to the Brooklyn Nets, who are playing better, but come on, dog. Um, yeah, like, I think the standards are a little bit higher than that, you know what I mean? So I think that, like, even after wins and losses, we could discuss what went well, what didn't go well. I don't think that makes it ungrateful, you know what I mean? So it's just it's just I don't know, it's just kind of how this game was in particular. So I'm trying not to yeah. Remember when we thought we fleeced getting Gary Trent Jr.? Yeah, there was a stretch there where really we were just there was a stretch there where, like, honestly, you guys, okay, it sounds ridiculous now. I swear it sounds ridiculous now, but you kind of had to be there. Gary had first off, he had a 6 straight game stretch where he had 30 plus. I don't know what else to say about Gary. Gary had like a lot of aura coming in. Like, it actually kind of makes me sad watching him now. Not just because his play is diminished, but it feels like his like overall confidence and swagger is diminished. Like, Gary, as like the one that we knew him from the good times here in Toronto, was like really confident shot maker. Can be really aggressive. Like, wasn't a shutdown defender, but could be really disruptive and swipe for steals. At one point, he was like at over 2 steals per game to start that 2022-2023 season. When he first joined the Raptors, like, he had like a 40 ball against Cavs. I mean, the Cavs have been soft since time, basically. But like, yeah, like, he had a 40 ball against the Cavs. He hit that game winner against the Wizards where Raul Neto tried to flop and they didn't call it, and rightfully so, and he hit the game winning 3. I mean, even his look, the 33, like, I don't know, Gary, like, I think he was a fan favorite, like, especially for a while. Now his play started to diminish, and ultimately he wasn't, what the Raptors wanted him to be. And when we look back on it, the impression again is colored by the fact that he arrived on the basis of the Raptors choosing him over Norman Powell, which wasn't the right decision, objectively. But, like, I swear Gary had a moment there, man. I really liked Gary for a bit, man. And I liked him as a person, too. Like, obviously, we had a great time interviewing his dad on the Raptor show. Shouts to Gary Trent Sr. coming in and just giving us some generational episodes. You thought the Fat VanVleet interview was good. Trust me, man. When Gary Trent Sr. came in a mink coat talking about, cooking on the stove, and he wasn't talking about groceries, I was like, yo, this is wild. Yo, you don't understand how nervous our board producers were hovering over that mute button just in case Gary Trent went a little too far with anything, dog. Everyone was on their, everyone was on their toes, basically. But no, those are some elite interviews, man. We have pictures of Alex wearing the mink coats that Gary Trent Sr. used to wear. I think apparently he nicknamed each one. Like, there was a name for each, like, chinchilla that he had on. Like, bro, it was crazy. And then even with Gary himself, like, we interviewed Gary a couple times. One time I remember, shouts to Gillette, but, like, Gary was like the team smooth versus, or team styled with the beard versus smooth, which was Grady. And yeah, like, as part of that campaign, we interviewed Gary, and I was just like, the guy was such a cool dude. I was just like, okay, my idea is basically I'm going to show you a couple of my fits. I'm going to have Gary rate the fits. And Gary was like gassing up every fit. I was like, yo, that's so sweet of you, man. I was showing him some terrible looks, and he was like, yo, what do you mean that's heat? So I don't know. I really like Gary. Shouts to everybody who saw Gary walking along Spadina. That man was in Kensington shopping nonstop. I swear Gary was really fun, man. I swear Gary was really fun. Oh, yeah, and also, fun fact about Gary Trent Sr. is that he has 4 sons, and their 4 sons' names are all variations of the name Gary. So obviously Gary Trent Jr. is his namesake, but you also had Grayson, Graydon, and then my favorite, which was just Gary's son, which I thought was freaking genius, man. He had a 4th son, and he's like, I've run out of Gary's, and then he's like, Gary's son. Like, that's incredible. Like, he's Icelandic or Nordic or something. It was just innovation from that, yeah. Yeah, Gary is a good dude. No, you could tell, man. He was a good soul. He was also ready to square up, too, man. I love that Gary also got into fights. He got into a lot of fights in Milwaukee, actually. I remember him fighting Brook Lopez, because Brook Lopez, like, took his hairband, like, his headband. He snapped his headband off and threw it at him. Like, some great Raptors moments, channel moments with Gary Trent, because he also had like some like weird, silly plays. I don't know. I was really hoping that he would find some good version of himself in Milwaukee. Again, like he's a really good catch and shoot 3-point shooter. That with Giannis, that should work. But again, there was something there that, I mean, he had some really high highs in that Milwaukee series last year, but he was also known, like even in that game where he had like 37 or something. Everyone remembers the last play where he let the ball, go between his legs, and like Bill Buckner, and it was a turnover. It's like, dog, that sucks, man. But I mean, Gary's a good soul, man. You know, I don't say that easily about some of the players you meet, but like I really like Gary a lot. Gary was a good dude, you know. No yak, and the team looks good. Get off that 9/11 of a contract. Oh, come on, guys. Come on, Kareem. I'm taking that one off again. Brandon seeing doubles all year. You got to stop diminishing him and getting doubled every game, barely getting foul calls. You know, I think one thing with Brandon I really admire, and I say this as like a fan of the game, not even just a fan of the Raptors, but I really admire that Brandon Ingram just doesn't like foul bait at all. To be honest, it'd probably make both the Raptors and Brandon better if he did play for the foul, but that guy just straight up doesn't foul bait. All the guy does is, okay, I'm going to shoot over the top of you. I'm going to look to make the shot. He never like kicks his leg out. He never leans into a guy for the shot and then tries to get the foul call. He doesn't like, stand there, pump fake 4 times and then try to jump into a guy. Like, I don't know, especially in this era where like people talk about like ethical basketball and who flops and who doesn't. And some of the best guards in the league, in particular with Shea and Brunson, have this sort of like unfortunate like stigma against them. And also, honestly, not just unfortunate. They do definitely know how to play to the foul calls. I'm not going to be holier than thou. Again, I rooted for Kyle Lowry for his entire Raptors career, bro. That guy was cheating the referees all game, all day. But I do appreciate Brandon's just like pure hooperness. You know what I mean? Like the ethical basketball. Like he doesn't even do the Pascal Siakam where he would spin and yell A as he drove to the basket. Like there's just nothing that Brandon does where he gets like he's like playing to the whistle. You know what I mean? And I think that really speaks to like just how much confidence he has in his own shot making ability, his touch, his ability to make shots at all 3 levels. But I also think it's just like sometimes you watch a guy and the way they play, and you're just like, there's a dedication and love for the game of basketball that like almost like there should be rules to this to a certain degree. You know what I mean? And I feel like he really, even just watching the way he plays, like he's very respectful of the game of basketball. So yeah, I mean, I've gained such an appreciation for Brandon. Obviously, as a Raptor, he's played like an all-star, and he got the chain tonight, which was great. Here's a picture of that Kareem redeeming himself. All right, here we go, buddy. Thank you for the pick. Yeah, like Brandon, well deserved with the chain. I think is this back-to-back games with the chain? Because no, Jamal got the chain in Milwaukee. But like, yeah, like he's like, I've become a fan. I mean, honestly, I'm always a fan of all the Raptors, but like, I'm a real fan when I bought the guy's jersey, bro. It's been a while since I bought a guy's jersey. Last time I bought a Raptor jersey, probably a DeMar jersey off DH-Gate, from back in the day. Like, yeah. So, I mean, obviously I'm preferential towards the scorers and stuff. So, but I got gifted a Kawhi, I got gifted a Pascal, got gifted a Grady. So those are the other jerseys that I got Raptor wise. But yeah, this is like, I was like, I had to go on my way to buy the Brandon jersey, man. He deserves it, man. So I'm sad that we never got to see Prime Lowry go up against Wemby. He for sure would have tried to go through Wemby's legs, like he did with George Hill. Absolutely, man. You don't understand. You know how hype we would have been if we had Kyle Lowry in Toronto and he took a charge on Wemby? Like, I swear you wouldn't hear Raptors Twitter shut up about it for a week, okay, if that happened. So yeah, and that was gonna happen too. So yeah, but I mean, they don't really make competitors like that. Like, what made Kyle special wasn't any of his skills; it was his brain and how hard he wanted to compete. Like that guy was just wired to win. Period. It was beautiful. Here's the team pick, by the way, as well, courtesy of Kareem. We got the entire squad in the pick. Grady once again doing a little flexing off to the side. Jamison Battle goes to the opposite side here. Mamu in the back. Jakob, just get well soon, I suppose. I don't even know what to say. Jamal somehow not in the middle of this. That's rare. Jamal usually gets in the middle of this. Whose feet are in is there just an ice bucket? Is anyone standing in that bucket or? There just is an ice bucket in the middle. Okay. I do find it funny that like even in the NBA, I don't know why I expected them to have like really sophisticated buckets, but it's just straight up like one of those mop buckets with ice and water. I guess there's nothing really fancy at all about a basket for your feet to soak in, but it is kind of funny that you walk in and you're like, what is this? Like a janitorial closet with how many mop buckets there are? But whatever, man. Whatever you guys need to take care of your bodies, man. Especially Brandon, bro. Like Brandon, even tonight, he drove. He had a play where he got called for an offensive foul. I mean, he was getting pushed in the back, but whatever. Like his elbow does lean, I suppose, into who was it, Ryan Rollinson's face. But on that drive, like he like his ankle, like I guess he stepped on top of another guy's foot, so you're always gonna roll your ankle on that type of play. So you're like always worried. You're like, oh my god, like is he gonna be okay? Brandon was able to come back and he was able to finish the game strong, play 35 minutes tonight. Like the stat that's been rolling around out there is like who's played the most minutes in the league so far in terms of just total minutes played. And part of this is because Brandon obviously has been on the Raptors, and the Raptors have played a pretty compressed schedule in terms of just total games played. But like, yeah, the fact that Brandon Ingram is top of the NBA in minutes played so far on the season is not just a miracle performed by Alex McKechnie, who always gets a ton of the credit, and he deserves the credit, but it's also like a huge testament to Brandon, again, his love of the game. When he had the game taken away from him last year with the injury, and he had to change teams and he had to settle in, like the amount of focus he's put into being healthy this year, and the amount of pride he's put into like being available and playing through, and even games where he's not 100%, and we've talked about on the show where some games he doesn't even look 100%, he's missing shots, he's a little slow, like whatever, but his determination to play, like in an era where everyone gets criticized for load management and taking games off, and Brandon, the biggest knock against him was not being able to play, like the fact that he's actually been a soldier and like stuck it out and put in the amount of effort, like both mentally and physically, to get to the point where his body's healthy, like I'm just personally really happy for him, man. That's like a really, really big thing. And of course, you got to shout out the medical staff, and Alex McKechnie gets a ton of credit for all of that, and he deserves to be, like, he's genuinely a gift. But I don't think you should discount at all the amount of effort by the player here too, man. So, like, seriously, man. Shouts to Brandon, man. He's maybe a big fan of the player that he is right now. Coaching stats should be better with the challenges. We're not good at winning them at all. Yes, I mean, oh my goodness, bro. Okay. You know what? The challenges thing is like so minor, but it's like it's also so correctable. Like you actually have the ability, because like people think, okay, maybe you're 50-50 with challenges. Like that's okay. Like it's a coin flip. It's not a coin flip. You get you got a chance to watch the playback. You get to choose which plays you review, and you get like if you make the right play, you get to call it a second time. Like you should be at least in this like 2/3 or even ideally in the 70% correct range. The Raptors challenged a play today where they had a blow by, and Kevin Porter Jr. went to the basket and tried to dunk the ball. And CMB recovered, Mamu recovered on the play, and both of them tried to make a play on the ball. Upon review, like, so it was called a foul because KPJ lands hard and whatever, but they called it a foul. Upon review, like, it wasn't as much contact as you thought, and it was relatively clean, but like there is clearly still contact. It's like a mid-air play. It's also like an inconsequential play in like the second quarter. It's like that doesn't change anything, you know? Like I would honestly rather the Raptors like just like use it in like, again, like there should be two scenarios or two general strategies that I see. Maybe you tell me more, but the two general strategies I see are, okay, one, it's like what's the highest EV play in terms of like the expected values, right? So if there's a bang play where it's going to erase 3 points off the board for your opponent, or it's going to create 3 points on the board for you, like let's say you drive, you make an and one, they call it a charge, but then you review that and you get a 3-point play off that opportunity instead of a 0-point play, like that's a big swing. You go from 0 to 3, that's a big swing, right? And in this case, you're going from like maybe 2 in the free throw. That's 2 free throws for guys making 75%, should be like 1.5 points, right? So you're making a 1.5 versus a 0-point play. Like that's not high enough of an expected value to be using the challenge in the first place to reverse a potential call. So that's one sequence. Or the other one would be like, okay, you're trying to reverse a foul call on your most important player and preserve their availability based on, your ability to essentially like kind of give them a 7th foul essentially by being able to overcome like 1 or 2 bad calls against a key player. Like if you want to save them for Scottie, Nick actually used to be a guy who used to do this a lot with like Fred and Pascal. He used to save the challenges for them just to keep them in the game longer, as if they didn't play enough minutes. So like those are the two general strategies. I suppose the third one will be you keep them in your pocket until like crunch time, and that way it has maybe the biggest overall swing in terms of like how much you could swing again a tight game momentum. Like you need every possession. The counter argument to that would be if you only save your challenges late, then you're mostly limiting yourself to one challenge versus if you challenge like a sure known bad call in the first half, then you get a chance to challenge again. So you can, you know, in terms of going back to expected value, you can then flip 2 possessions in your favor versus just one, which chances are you're probably going to get more points. Like you can get 5 points in your favor over the course of a game versus like just 2 in an important moment. But like, regardless of any of those things I just said, and all of this obviously is just mumbo jumbo, it's just like, why can't we just review the plays that are clearly mistakes? And you know what I mean? Like, I just feel like sometimes we review plays that don't even look like they're worth reviewing. Like, it's not like such an obvious play. Like the KPJ foul. I mean, first off, it wasn't even the right, play to review because the referees literally looked at it and they're like, okay, yes, he touches the ball, but then he slaps his wrist. Like, that's a foul. On anyone other than LeBron, by the way, but whatever. Like that's a foul. Like, it's a foul. Like, and you wasted the review. It's like, I just don't even feel like we're picking the right place to review. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't really fit into like those two logical categories or sort of how to do it. So, no, I mean, I know who cares about the challenge if you win the game, but like you can say that about everything, bro. Like, I just think that like these things matter when you're trying to win the game. Like, I don't know, maybe it's just like I'm like I get obviously into the minutia of the game in terms of like I really care about every possession and. I mean, I'm just generally a guy that like is very competitive, but you shouldn't squander these opportunities. It's like if a player took one or two bad shots every game, like you'd be annoyed at that. Just like if a coach took 1 or 2 bad challenges a game, you'd be annoyed at that too. Like they really, really need to improve on this front, and I don't know why it can't be because again, you have every benefit. You have technology, you have the iPad in front of you. Guy reviews it. That guy should be very confident in terms of which plays to choose to review or not. But maybe I don't know. Maybe it's not as simple as that. Someone said in $2 that's if the NASA's played, we'd lose. Dead serious. Really? Is the NASA's playing this season? Hold on. What's the Nasty saying these days, man? The NASA's. I know they just did a podcast like him and Giannis. I guess players are really comfortable with doing podcasts mid-season nowadays. Yeah, Thanasis is back to playing Thanasis role, like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, victory cigar type of scenario. Now that we have Garrett Temple, like I kind of appreciate Thanasis a little bit more in the sense of like I understand what it means when a guy comes in with great energy every game and like he's just there for moral support. In the weird case, it's like obviously he's there because he's Giannis's brother as well, and obviously Garrett's nobody's brother in that case, so it's not quite nepotism. But I do support like teams having a good pro on the end of the bench, and whatever you want to say about Thanasis, that guy is a good pro. So, but I do appreciate this. That's incredible that was added to this discussion. Last question: would I trade IQ for Tyler Hero? I don't think the Heat will trade IQ for Tyler Hero, and Tyler Hero's been struggling since he's come back off the injuries, so like this isn't the right chance to sort of evaluate Hero right now. Yeah, probably. I probably would. But again, I don't really think that this changes that much. Do you know what I mean? You're kind of trading one problem for another problem. But yeah. Okay, I appreciate your questions. I'm gonna wrap up by hand out the 3 stars. But first, before I hand out the 3 stars, I want to bring you a special message from one of our beloved sponsors. So, where is this right now? I'm sorry, guys. Should have prepared a little bit better for this. My bad, guys. What is the message? Okay, when the schedule is packed and the scoreboard is tight, the pressure is for real. But the chill doesn't have to disappear. Following your favorite NBA team can be stressful, and honestly, in this game, it was a little tight, it was a little close, but it was a little stressful. Out of stress scale, I would say like a 2.5 out of 5. Like a minor. Like when you sit in teacups, for example, at the amusement park. But your choice of beer does not have to be stressful. Coors Light always delivers mountain cold refreshment. When I'm watching Raptors, things can get intense, especially given how close the standings are in the NBA season. But that's why having Coors Light's mountain cold refreshment is the chill choice. Coors Light is cold lagered, cold filtered, and cold certified for a smoother finish. So when the game heats up, why not make the chill choice by grabbing a crisp, refreshing Coors Light? Okay, let's hand out the 3 stars and get out of here for the game. It's just a Raptors Bucks game. Actually, these games used to be really heated back in the day, but I suppose we're really not back in the day. The thing about the old days, they're really the old days, you know? Raptors Bucks really don't have nearly the same aura that they used to. This used to be like one of my favorite matchups. This is right up there with Raptors Sixers, to be honest. I guess it helps to play them in the playoffs, is what I'm trying to say. But in any case, your 3 stars from the game. First star, I disagree with the chain, actually. I thought Scottie actually played a better game overall than Brandon, just a little bit. But yeah, Scottie, 24 points, 10 of 14 shooting, 2 of 3 from 3. The 2 of 5 from the foul line was a bit strange. You know, Scottie's been very consistent on the foul line this year, but he missed a pair at one point and then split a pair. But yeah, 11 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks, just energy across the board, which was great, and dominance, especially in the first quarter. Second star is going to go to Brandon Ingram, 29 points, 9 of 18 shooting, 4 of 6 from 3, 7 of 8 from the foul line. And then your third star, pretty easy in this one, but Sandro Mamukelashvili, 36 minutes. That might be a season high for him, actually. Might be a career high for him, to be honest. I got to double check, but maybe he played like 36 in like a game 82 scenario. But 18 points on 8 of 12 shooting, 2 of 6 from 3, 7 rebounds, 2 assists. Defensively was hunted a little bit, but offensively certainly gave it back. Knocked down the threes, made a couple big plays, converted chances. You know, and I think for him personally, like, you know, he's spoken about the vulnerability that he's felt in his previous stops in the NBA, in San Antonio, in Milwaukee, not being sure if he would make it. Again, the guy's the 54th pick, signed to a 2-year, 2-way deal. Like, you're beating the long odds. Basically, it's like, you know, it's like if AJ Lawson made it on the Raptors type of thing. And I'm happy for him to like come here to Toronto, find a good spot, and then literally return to the place that he started, where he still has friends. You saw him like hugging Giannis after the game and stuff. It's just like he's a super likable guy, and I think he's also a very talented guy, and I think he's meeting the right opportunity here in Toronto to show that. So happy for Mamu. He's your third star. Your Gerald Henderson award for who randomly torched the Raps. On principle alone, I'm not going to give it to KPJ. I will give it to, you know what? I'm actually going to give it to Myles Turner. Myles Turner has been struggling a lot this season. And to see him come in and just start swishing some of these threes, I'm like, dog, I know you haven't been doing that all season. But he has 21 points tonight, 6 of 14 shooting, 4 of 10. Really big credit to Brandon Ingram, who got him fouled. Like he got him in foul trouble. I think there was like 3 fouls on Turner in the third quarter alone. I think 2 were drawn by Brandon and 1 was drawn by Scottie. But that sent him to the bench for an extended period of time. And that was really key because I thought he was like, you know, definitely their second best player on the night. So I'll give it to Myles Turner, even though he's totally capable of 21 points on a regular basis. But he really has been playing like terribly for the Bucks since leaving Indiana. So tonight was actually like one of his best games on the season. Might have been his best game on the season, to be honest. So there you go. Yes, last question or last comment. Vote Brandon Ingram and Scottie Barnes for the All-Star game. Like, yeah, please go out there and you know, show the boys some love. Vote for the dynamic duo Scottie and BI3 for the All-Star game. Absolutely. I think, you know, there was a time when, and again, obviously All-Star voting used to be different, but man, there was a time not too long ago where like we could, just off the sheer strength of how many Raptor fans were out there and how much enthusiasm was behind the team, like, man, we put Kyle and DeMar into the All-Star game just off votes alone. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that obviously none of the players here have done as much as Kyle and DeMar did, but you know, I know the fan base is out there, so hopefully the Raptors being good this year. I mean, the last couple of years, I totally understand if you couldn't vote on what to the All-Star game, it's totally fair. But even if it doesn't like directly put them in the game, because the fan vote is now only half the votes. There's also player vote and coach vote, but it actually still helps the player out in terms of just like it's a good reflection of like what their marketability is. It goes into all these materials for like when they sign deals and stuff like that. So I know that's not particularly interesting to help players business wise. That's not your responsibility as a customer, but I do think that if you like them as people, the more popularity that they're tangibly able to demonstrate, the better of a case they have. So yeah, go vote for your guys, man. You know, that's all. Go vote for your guys. So thanks everyone for listening. I appreciate you guys. Big shouts to Karem in the chat. Please leave some W's in the chat for Karem, our beloved, our adorable little intern here. He's not that little actually. He's a full-grown adult, but it's all good. You know what I mean? We'll be watching Liverpool hopefully extend their win streak. You know what I mean? Maybe one more dub against Tottenham this weekend. Sahal Abdi, where you at, man? Where you at? Liverpool versus Tottenham. That's always a 3-3 game. So, yeah, looking forward to that. Otherwise, the Raptors play twice on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. We'll be back on the post-game shows for those. Will also be, by the way, back tomorrow morning at around 11 a.m. Alex has a fresh six-pack, which on a Friday, you know what I mean? We're chilling, you know what I mean? You know, we're making the chill choices on the six-pack on a Friday. And, yeah, obviously we'll have one or two Raptors topics in there, but realistically, we got some pretty chaotic things planned for you. So enjoy the banter, enjoy the weekend. Go out there, make some holiday shopping if you haven't done it already. And I know people are probably wrapping up work finally and getting, you know, the Christmas break off. Hope you guys are able to enjoy your time with loved ones, and hopefully some of that involves watching the Raptors, you know, perform quite a bit because, they're going to play a lot. It's a pretty packed schedule. So appreciate you guys. Yeah, see you guys tomorrow morning at 11.